Thank you. On behalf of myself, Councillor Loftus and Councillor Cllr, and indeed the entire Anti-Austerity Alliance, I would like to welcome the entire audience. I would like to thank the staff, and I'd like to congratulate the fellow councillors on their election. In the last 2 weeks, we have seen a huge amount of discussion and debate and negotiation between the main parties on this council. Unfortunately, this discussion has not been about what this council can do to address the housing crisis in Limerick, nor has it been to discuss what we can do to resist water charges, now with a majority on this council claiming in words at least to oppose that tax. Nor has the discussion been about the upcoming council budget and ensuring that there are no more cuts, no more privatisation, no rent hikes in that budget. No, the negotiations over the last 2 weeks have not been about what this council can do to serve ordinary people in the city. The negotiations have been entirely about what they can do to serve themselves. The parties were negotiating to make sure that while those cuts take place, it is their representative who has the nice office and the nice chains. A few years ago, my childhood friend David O'Brien O'Loughlin wrote a song about the unemployment crisis and the mental health crisis in Limerick. And I would like to open by quoting a line from it, which reads, "I want to change the world so we can live a better way. If everyone tried, we'd have it done in a day." On May 23rd, the people didn't quite change the world, but we took a step in that direction. In the elections, people sent a clear message to this government. We can't make ends meet. People are struggling to pay the mortgages, pay the bills. They can't afford a water tax. They can't afford more austerity cuts and charges to pay off the bankers. On May 23rd, the people said loud and clear, lift the burden of austerity. Unfortunately, the signs are that this government and this council look set to ignore that message. That is nowhere more obvious than on the issue of water charges. The proposed new water tax was the single biggest issue in the elections, on the doorsteps and in the opinion polls. And it was decisively rejected on May 23rd. This government, bloodied and bruised, however, haven't learned. They haven't listened. They are stumbling along on the same path. Now, they are starting to install water meters in my own ward of Limerick City North. Water meters have nothing to do with conservation and everything to do with privatisation. They want to take more money from us that we simply can't afford to hand it over to the rich. During the election, communities in Cork and Dublin came together and resisted the installation of meters, starting the process of building a mass non-payment campaign and people power campaign. Here, I would like to take this opportunity to tell the government and the austerity parties that if they don't heed the warning that they got in the election and scrap the water tax, that they will face similar opposition in Limerick. The 3 Anti-Austerity Alliance councillors are all pledged to stand with communities in building such an opposition. And we call on other councillors, in particular Sinn Féin and the independent councillors, to together with us, to let's build a coalition. Let us build a campaign of civil disobedience and non-payment to stop this water tax. Now today is of course an historic occasion. The first meeting of Limerick City and County Council, of a new City and County Council. Unfortunately, however, I am reminded of a warning James Connolly gave a long time ago, in different circumstances, about the futility of changing the flag, changing the name, but keeping the same system, the same rule by the same elites. It is not enough to have a new council. We need to have a new policy and a new approach. I would point back 95 years to the Limerick Soviet, when the Trades Council ran this city for an inspirational example of a council genuinely run in the interests of the 99%. And by the way, this council here today had 5 years to organise a proper celebration for the centenary of that important chapter in our history. Now, some may say that there is not much that a council realistically could do in this day and age, given the constraints put on it. However, I will give just one example of what the AAA will be fighting for on this council, and that is action on the housing crisis. Novus Institute, as well as Alan Jacks in the Limerick Post, recently highlighted the developing crisis of families in this city being made homeless by a coalition of banks, the government and council inaction. We have families at this very moment who have been evicted, have had their homes repossessed, and are trying to live and prepare meals for their children in B&Bs, but whilst living on couches in friends' and families' homes. We have thousands on the housing waiting list. We have hundreds housed in conditions of disrepair, in houses in desperate need of maintenance and repairs. But we have a tiny budget to deal with that. This council can, if the political will exists, launch a programme of house building and maintenance to address the crisis. We could launch to build those thousands of houses that are needed and put it up to local Housing Minister Jan O'Sullivan and local Finance Minister Michael Noonan to fund such a programme. Or, if needs be, the council could borrow the money to invest in housing. The one thing that this council cannot do is continue the do-nothing policy of previous councils. That is just one example of the kind of change that the AAA councillors, in coalition with the working people of this city and any other councillors willing to take a principled stand against austerity, that's what we'll be fighting for. And I would appeal to everyone in this room and outside it who wants to see this kind of change to join us in building a new movement in Limerick for workers and the unemployed.